And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, President Donald Trump's major address to Congress is receiving widespread praise, including from his toughest critics. And that is tonight's opening monologue. Now, President Trump's first address to a joint session of Congress was a very big moment. In my opinion, he knocked it out of the park, and he did so because he focused on his promises and key policy proposals. Now, in a few moments, we'll get reaction from Laura Ingraham and Ann Coulter, but first, the Commander-in-Chief simply outlined all of the severe challenges, problems the country faces, then laid out his very bold solutions to fix the problems. Let's take a look.
As promised, I directed the Department of Defense to develop a plan to demolish and destroy ISIS. We will work with our allies, including our friends and allies in the Muslim world, to extinguish this vile enemy from our planet. And we must support the victims of crime. I have ordered the Department of Homeland Security to create an office to serve American victims. The office is called VOICE. Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. My administration has answered the pleas of the American people for immigration enforcement and border security. By finally enforcing our immigration laws, we will raise wages, help the unemployed, save billions and billions of dollars, and make our communities safer for everyone. Tonight, I am also calling on this Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare with reforms that expand choice, increase access, lower costs, and at the same time provide better health care.
Now, in my lifetime, I've never seen a president so committed to keeping his promises the way President Trump is. Now, he's literally going down a list, checking them off one by one. So now it's time for Congress to do their job, get moving, get up to the speed of Trump, because the future of the country depends on their success. Now, that means repealing, replacing Obamacare now, not at some point down the road, not repairing it. It's not repairable. That means getting the border wall built as soon as possible. That means slashing taxes, reforming the tax code immediately so that we can reverse the country's precipitous decline and put the millions of Americans that are out of the labor force, on food stamps, in poverty, back to work. Now, President Trump talked about the economic mess that he inherited from the Democrats. An important point. Watch this.
Tonight, as I outline the next steps we must take as a country, we must honestly acknowledge the circumstances we inherited. 94 million Americans are out of the labor force. Over 43 million people are now living in poverty, and over 43 million Americans are on food stamps. More than 1 in 5 people in their prime working years are not working. We have the worst financial recovery in 65 years. In the last 8 years, the past administration has put on more new debt than nearly all of the other presidents combined.
Now, one of the other major takeaways from last night's address was just the pathetic partisan politics displayed by the Democrats. They sat on their hands the entire night, including when the president talked about putting America first and actually creating jobs. Watch this.
America must put its own citizens first, because only then can we truly make America great again. Since my election, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, General Motors, Sprint, SoftBank, Lockheed, Intel, Walmart, and many others have announced that they will invest billions and billions of dollars in the United States and will create tens of thousands of new American jobs.
Really, Nancy? You couldn't stand or clap for creating jobs? Now, it just shows how much influence the alt-radical left now has over the Democratic Party, and more importantly, that the Democrats have zero interest in working with President Trump, even though he's trying to clean up the mess that they left from their failed leftist policies. Now, that means the responsibility now to fix the country falls squarely on the shoulders of the Republicans in the House and the Senate. Now is the time they've got to lead. Now, just take a look at the reaction to last night's speech from the American public. CNN had a poll. 78% of people had a positive reaction to the president's speech. 69% said the policies he laid out would move the country in the right direction. CBS poll found the same thing. 76% of the people who watched approved of the speech, and over 60% said the address made them feel more optimistic. And take a look how the very tough, well-respected colleague, fair and balanced newsman, Chris Wallace, listen to what he said.
I thought it was by far the best speech I've ever heard Donald Trump give. It was one of the best speeches in that setting I've ever heard any president give. I feel like tonight Donald Trump became the president of the United States. That yes, of course, he got it 35, 38 days ago, 40 days ago when he was sworn in, but so many Democrats didn't recognize him. I think tonight, whether they agree with him or didn't agree with him, he became the president of the United States, and everyone's going to have to accept that fact.
Even Mr. Whitelash himself, Van Jones, who has repeatedly bashed President Trump, he even praised the commander-in-chief for honoring the widow for fallen Navy SEAL Ryan Owens. Listen to this.
He became president of the United States in that moment. Period. There are a lot of people who have a lot of reason to be frustrated with him, to be fearful of him, to be mad at him. But that was one of the most extraordinary moments you have ever seen in American politics, period.
So here's the bottom line. Tonight, President Trump now has the wind at his back. He has sincere, concrete plans to fulfill the promises he's made to you, the American people. We'll hold him and Congress accountable. It's pretty simple. The GOP needs to come together and get these things done. The American people deserve that. Here with reaction, the editor-in-chief of Life Zet, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host, Laura Ingraham. Your reaction, funny, Chris Wallace, we both agree, is tough on both sides. He had the same exact comment as Van Jones. What did you think?
I think that this was the speech that a lot of us have been waiting for. I think, look, one criticism of the speech, I guess, could be it would have been nice to have that speech as the inaugural address. But look, these guys are just they're like 5 weeks into this, and I think they're getting their footing. They have their footing now, I think, on messaging and communications, much to the chagrin of the left. I think it was appropriate that all the female Democrat congresswomen wore the flag of surrender, basically their white outfits. I mean, the color of surrender.
The flag of surrender, you're calling it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like they're all dressed in white. I'm like, yeah, I'd put up the white flag, too, if I were listening to the speech. And they were grasping afterward for anything negative to say, and it was good that Van Jones was honest about it, and it was good that Rachel Maddow said that she could not understand, I'm paraphrasing, why the Democrats had such a lame rebuttal when they supposedly have such a deep bench. So the Democrats have to figure out, like, where do they go from here? Is it just going to be Russia, 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 impeach, 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 Bannon, Bannon, Miller, Miller? I mean, at some point, do they have anything substantive to say, or they are just not going to work with the president on even the issues they agree with him on, Sean, which was stunning, the reaction shots that you played, even on the issues where Democrats agree now and have agreed in the past, including on the trade issue, where a lot of Democrats agree with where Trump is going on that. They're just sitting on their hands. It's just so disingenuous, and really, they're putting their party before their country, and their policies, frankly, are in the backseat as well. So it's a befuddling time for the Democrat Party, for sure, and Trump did a great job.
After the speech last night, I had a really good interview with Speaker Gingrich, and I've been worried about the pace of Congress a little bit, and I talked to some of the Freedom Caucus members. They have different views than, say, maybe the Speaker, and I'm worried about some communication issues within Congress. But what he actually said was pretty interesting, that it'll go in a box, and the box will include what do you need to pass this health care bill, what do you need, and then it'll be worked out. Unfortunately, that's a sausage-making process of legislation. Are you confident that Congress does their part to the extent that we need it?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we have to remember what happened to the Republican Party in 2006, Sean. We had a big spending Republican Party in the second Bush term, especially. Obviously, a lot of it was the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. We spent an enormous amount of money. We had big entitlement program growth with the Medicare. Part D with Bush doing that legislation with the Democrats. We have to be careful that we don't become deficit doves. Mike Pence was known as a deficit hawk during his time in Congress. And I think it's great to do all these programs. I think we obviously have to fix these bridges and so forth, but there has to be meaningful cuts and not just rely on future growth in order to get some of this done. So I have some, I have some agreement with what the Freedom Caucus is saying here, because we don't want to get ourselves in a hole here on the deficit. I mean, we were just starting to trim the deficit with the sequester cuts, and everybody wants to spend $54 billion on the military, but we cannot do what Obama did and just keep shoveling debt and deficit pain onto the next generation. So
the worst thing I think we could do is let Congress spend the money. I would like to see some outside entity created that will manage every penny and every nickel. And if we stretch those dollars, we'll get 5 times the amount of value out of it, because we waste 50 cents on every dollar when Congress controls it, and they pat each other on the back, and then I'll support your project, you support mine. That doesn't work.
I think there is a lot of fat, but as we know, the Social Security and Medicare and disability payments, those still take up the lion's share of this budget. So it's like you have to be super careful how you do it, but there's a lot of balancing to do. No one's going to get everything they want in this. To get meaningful health care reform, people are going to have to give up on some of their pet issues here, because you're not going to get anything done unless people are willing to give a little bit. But Trump has a mandate, I think. Energy,
the corporate tax rate, the repatriation, the middle tax cut, getting rid of Obamacare, that helps the economy. But I got to roll. Laura, always appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
Great to see you.
All right, coming up, Ann Coulter in studio. Coming up next, her reaction to the president's address, and also later tonight.
Why not join forces and finally get the job done and get it done right?
President Trump reaching out to Democrats, asking them to work with Republicans on behalf of you, the American people. Will they ever do it? I tend to doubt it. Later tonight, Larry Elder, Ari Fleischer, Anthony Scaramucci will join us, and much more on this busy news night.
Good evening, and live from America's News headquarters, I'm Jackie Ibanez here in New York. The White House counsel's office ordering Trump administration staff to save all Russia-related material. Federal investigators are currently looking into possible contacts between Trump advisors and Russia, while congressional committees are probing Russia's role in hacking during the election. The president has denied having any knowledge aides were in touch with Russian intelligence agents during the campaign. And a huge rally on Wall Street one day after President Trump's address to Congress. The Dow surging 302 points, pushing the index above 21,000 points for the first time ever. The S&P and NASDAQ also saw healthy gains. Traders reacted positively to Mr. Trump's plans to cut taxes and push for other business-friendly policies. I'm Jackie Ibanez. Now back to Hannity for all of your headlines. Log on to foxnews.com.
We must support the victims of crime. I have ordered the Department of Homeland Security to create an office to serve American victims. The office is called VOICE, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. We are providing a voice to those who have been ignored by our media and silenced by special interests.
All right, that was President Trump last night addressing a joint session of Congress. Here with reaction, author of the New York Times bestseller, In Trump We Trust, E Pluribus Awesome, Ann Coulter. You love that moment. They were hissing.
I think we got our ad for 2018, 2020, 2020. What is so great about that is it is the Democrats' natural reaction to hearing about the American victims of illegal immigrant crime. They didn't have time to think. They just think, oh, screw those Americans. They probably deserved it. No, they immediately, automatically take the side of the illegal immigrant criminal. It was an astonishing, revealing moment right there. And I don't think they're showing that on the other networks. No, they want to pretend it didn't happen.
And the president mentioned a couple of instances last night. I did a town hall with Donald Trump, then candidate Trump, with mothers whose sons were murdered by illegal immigrants. Nobody seems to ever want to talk about that part.
Right, and it's worth pointing out also, because everyone is lying about this, everything he said in that speech last night, he has been saying for 18 months or however long since he came down the escalator and talked about Mexico sending rapists and drug dealers. Nothing was new in that. And this idea that, oh, suddenly he looks like a president. No, this is I mean, saying he's putting America first. He's not running to be president of the world, but president of the United States of America. What would you say, he says to the Democrats, to the American family that's lost jobs, family members, income, because we refuse to enforce our immigration laws? He's been saying this every speech. Where have you people been? And the idea that they used to say this, that, oh, what kind of State of the Union address will he give if he's sending out tweets like this? Well, come on, everybody knows you speak differently to your boss than you do to your child than you do to your mother. I always knew, I mean, he's a billionaire. He knows how to behave. It was the same message he has been giving all along, but delivered in a proper State of the Union format, and nobody else in that room, not Republicans or Democrats, could have given that speech.
Maybe earlier in the campaign, because it was so new, I didn't know how it would work out. I'm now the biggest fan of him tweeting. He actually had a great line. It's like owning your own newspaper. Yeah. And if you have as many followers as him, he's getting more people reading his, quote, columns than any newspaper or any major newspaper group of newspapers combined.
And it drives the left crazy. I see them over on MSNBC saying, well, we took a poll, and, you know, most people out in America say he shouldn't tweet so much. Yeah, okay, you checked in the newsroom. I bet you don't want him to tweet so much. But, yeah, he can punch back through Twitter. And it's fun and it's funny, and I actually do really like him doing that. But that speech last night, I mean, there were so many revealing moments. As you say, the Democrats sitting on their hands when he says we're going to stop drugs from coming into the country, when he says we're bringing 10,000 jobs back, and they're sitting scowling, and those women in white, those big sows, the most exercise they've gotten, they finally figure out, oh, we've got to stand for this. It's like Pilates for them. That speech was fabulous.
Amazing.
And they're not showing it on the other networks. I'm glad you're showing lots of clips from it, because I was watching it thinking, what are they going to say about this? I mean, every line was a home run. So they're just not showing it. This is what they did throughout the campaign. He would give a blockbuster speech, like a speech in Phoenix, and their position is to just say, trust us, America, you don't want to see it. It was dark. It was awful. And that's what we keep getting. Look, there was nothing new here. It was a beautiful speech. He loves America. No one else could give this speech. Oh, one little tip for the media. Stop asking him if he's softening on immigration.
He's not. He's him.
All these rumors keep coming from reporters. It's the damnedest thing.
Networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation.
The new lodestar of our immigration policy will be the interests of the people who already live here. Very clear point. How many different ways does he have to say it? And yet they just can't stop asking.
You worried?
Look at it from the perspective of the poor illegal. No, we're looking at it from the perspective of the poor Americans.
In Congress?
Oh, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, there's only one senator who is desperately trying to become my favorite senator, Senator Tom Cotton. And actually, there are a fair number of House members, but no, those guys need to be knocked around. I think so, though. I'm not even sure. I mean, I don't know that many House members, but there seem to be a few good ones. But as I wrote last week, stop imitating Reagan and start imitating Donald Trump right now.
Yeah, and that would be good for them politically, and the country gets turned around, and our place in the world gets restored.
I think they may end up getting some Trumpian primary challengers. And
I think you're right.
I've always been against primary challenges to safe seats. No, I think we might want to open it up if they don't.
Step up.
Yeah.
All right. Ann Coulter, good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Up next, President Trump reached across the aisle numerous times last night as the Democrats work with Republicans on behalf of you, the American people. Will they stop being obstructionists? Don't hold your breath. Larry Elder, Ari Fleischer, Anthony Scaramucci will join us, and also later tonight.
That's why she's there, as a sort of a FU to the people who are criticizing him for this.
Liberals lashing out at President Trump. Why? For honoring the widow of a fallen Navy SEAL. It doesn't get any lower than this. We'll have that and more straight ahead.
Everything that is broken in our country can be fixed. Every problem can be solved. And every hurting family can find healing and hope. Our citizens deserve this, and so much more. So why not join forces and finally get the job done and get it done right? Democrats and Republicans should get together and unite for the good of our country and for the good of the American people.
President Trump called for unity last night, but it appears some Democrats wanted no part of that bipartisan message. Now, here are some liberal lawmakers reacting to the president's speech. Take a look.
Here's the thing that was weird about the speech to me that I think we've got to say. This is a guy in a death struggle with the truth. This is a guy who embellishment is his best friend.
With this president, more than any other, his speeches are detached from reality. This speech will be forgotten in a day or two. And where's the action?
The policies that he's doing don't add up in any way to the grandiose statements that he's making. In fact, every time I sat there listening to a lot of what he was said, and I felt like it was mendacity. It was a betrayal of many of the things, many of the people that he convinced to vote for him in my state.
I mean, this was Steve Bannon on steroids with a smile.
Joining us with reaction, Salem nationally syndicated radio talk show host Larry Elder, who's laughing, and former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer, and Trump Transition Executive Committee member and the founder of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci, is with us. Why are you laughing, Larry?
Well, you know, if you are a Trump-hating lefty, it seems to me it's awfully difficult to watch a speech where you're talking about infrastructure spending, talking about paid maternity leave, talking about ensuring that people with pre-existing illnesses get covered. It's awfully hard to watch that speech and call him a hateful, racist warmonger. And the other thing, Sean, is I think a lot of people who can't stand Donald Trump halfway through that address probably thought PricewaterhouseCoopers had handed him the wrong speech. I mean, the man in 4 weeks has said and done more things and expressed more policies and compassion to improve the inner city than Obama did in 8 years. It's awfully hard to come away from that speech and call him a hate monger, unless you really are irrational. And a lot of these people, like Chuck Schumer, are irrational.
You know, and we'll get into this in the next segment, but Ari, it's clear the Democrats have now made a decision that they're going to listen to the loudest voices. They don't want to be primaried. They want to hold on to power, and that means they will appeal to the liberal snowflakes, the Michael Moores, the Rosie O'Donnells, the Bill Maher's. That's the Republicans can expect no help from them.
I think that's largely right, except for a small group, maybe 8 to 10 senators who are up for re-election in Donald Trump's states that Donald Trump won. There may be a little bit of movement from those people. But, you know, Sean, I was raised as a Democrat when I was young. I changed after Ronald Reagan became president at the age of 21. So I know it's never a good time to be a Democrat. But I also know now is the even worse time to be a Democrat. And, you know, I tweeted last night, any Democrat who stands up more than 3 times during that speech is going to get a primary.
That's a sad state of affairs. I'm watching the speech, and I'm there, and it's like, even when he said, and we're going to create jobs for those Americans left behind, they still, Anthony, they didn't applaud.
You're in a tough spot, though, because what he basically did was he took 3 or 4 aspects of the playbook, middle-class jobs, blue-collar families getting a wage increase, infrastructure building to rebuild our inner cities and help the African-American communities, and that's supposed to be their base, Sean. Mm-hmm. And he took that base from them. And so they're going to have a very hard time in that group, that voting segment.
Agreed. And Larry, I don't think he's getting any help from any Democrats, and that now puts the responsibility squarely where it belongs, on the Republicans to do their job. And I prefer they move faster and get the job done sooner. But if they do these things, really, to me, it's not going to matter what any Democratic pundit or congressman or senator says on television.
Well, that's right. As between the media that dislikes him and the Republican Party, I got a feeling that Donald Trump's going to have more difficulty with the Republicans. Look, Van Jones even praised his speech yesterday, and Mitch McConnell said, I find myself in a strange position of agreeing with Van Jones for the first time in my life.
That's about better. Ari, you've been to a lot of these states of the Union, and they're usually partisan. Now, let's be honest. I thought this was hyper-partisanship.
Well, yeah, I do remember what it was like to be a Republican when Barack Obama took office, and Republicans didn't want to stand. They didn't want to give the president applause for the things he was doing, and that is traditional. The party in power gets the advantage of saying the things that bring people up to their feet, and the other party has to sit there looking dour and trying not to look too dour. But, you know, the power of the speech last night, Sean, was it put wind in Donald Trump's sails. It's allowed the president now to get momentum and to show leadership and confidence and strength. And that's powerful. And that also sends a sign to Republicans that they need to do things that the president is asking them to do. It's given him a lot of momentum that, frankly, he needed at this point in his presidency, and I'm very glad he got it last night.
Yeah, well said. Hannity,
I just want to add something to that. Not only that, the morale today, the people I talked to inside the White House, including the president, is off the chart. Yeah. So we got very good momentum. It's a very good inflection point in the president's early stage.
The Democrats hurt themselves, too, because even CNN and CBS, American people liked the speech overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
They loved it.
Yeah, and they're getting emotional, Sean. Yeah. They get emotional about it. They get upset. You know, I've been on other air where the hair catches on fire and smoke's coming out of their ears.
You have my sympathy for doing those interviews.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you all. Appreciate your input as always. And coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
That's why she's there. Yeah. As a sort of a FU to the people who are criticizing him for this.
A number of people on the left had the most vile and vicious things to say after a fallen Navy SEAL's widow was honored last night at President Trump's joint address to Congress. Up next, we'll get reaction from Bob Beckel and Tomi Lahren. And later, while in Texas interviewing President George W. Bush for his new book, we had the chance to meet some of the wounded American heroes that the 43rd President of the United States painted portraits of. Now find out what those paintings mean to them and more straight ahead.
We are blessed to be joined tonight by Corinne Owens, the widow of U.S. Navy Special Operator, Senior Chief William Ryan Owens. Ryan was a part of a highly successful raid that generated large amounts of vital intelligence that will lead to many more victories in the future against our enemy. Ryan's legacy is etched into eternity. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, what a moment from last night. President Trump, during last night's address, honoring the widow of fallen Navy SEAL Ryan Owens. He was killed last month during a raid in Yemen, but loudmouth liberals stooped to what is a new low after that very touching and real moment. Listen and watch this.
I wish she hadn't allowed herself to be used as his prop like that.
That's why she's there. Yeah, as a sort of a FU to the people who are criticizing him for this. What's he thinking about? My ratings.
And how many?
Record applause. Record. What is it? I'm going to get an Emmy for this. Most applause for a dead soldier on my watch. I mean, this is the sickness of this man.
Prop, dead soldier. Wow. And what was said on Twitter was even more vicious. Here with reaction is the co-host of The Five, Bob Beckel, and the host of Tommy on The Blaze. That's Tomi Lahren is with us. You're not going to defend that. I've known you for years.
No. I thought it was, I felt so badly for that woman. You know?
I wanted to cry.
And it was, it's times like that when I think, you could argue about, the father disagrees with the mission and all the rest. It doesn't matter. The guy was an American hero, and he went in and he died. And at a minimum, the idea of being able to stand up for 5 minutes and applaud his widow seems to me to be perfectly legitimate.
But, Tommy, all these liberal, snowflake, lunatics, that was so mean, cruel, and heartless to say these things. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening. This guy died. These men and women fight, bleed, and die, so they have the right to be ignorant and stupid. And that lack of appreciation, I think, bothered me the most in their comments.
Well, how condescending. That's what I first thought when I hear them saying that she's a political prop. That's why she's there for Trump's ratings. No. To talk down to her like that, to make her seem as if she's an infant, that she doesn't know what she's there for. Clearly, they could learn a thing or two from Karen Owens. And I would encourage all the women out there that are holding up their F Trump signs and they're marching in their little pink hats. I would encourage them to look at someone like Karen Owens and see what a real woman is and what real sacrifice looks like, because I don't think they get it yet.
My heart goes out to her. What a tough thing that anybody has to go through. Let me play Rosie O'Donnell. And if this represents Bob Beckel's party, I think they're doomed. We'll get Bob's reaction to this.
Yeah.
Even if our major media companies will not call him a liar, we will. He lies! He lies! He lies! He lies! To Donald Trump and his pathetic band of white, privileged, criminal businessmen, I would like to say to him, niet, sir, niet, niet, niet. No, we won't. We've seen what you have done, sir. We have seen your connections with Russia. The game is over.
So that's your part. That's Rosie Marr. Wait a minute. Rosie Marr Moore, Ashley Judd, Madonna. Wait a minute. And your liberal friends that sat on their hands last night, that is your party. It's run by the loony left.
Can you imagine waking up next to her every day?
No. No, not exactly.
Tommy, let me explain something to you. I've been around. I was around for the Lincoln second inaugural. And you're...
For the Lincoln second inaugural?
Yeah, I've been around.
You've been around a little bit?
But you know something? You make the same mistake that Hannity makes, which is you pick out 2 or 3 liberals and you make us all that way. And it's just unfair, uncouth, and sad. And I think a good idea, just to, if I can give you a little bit of advice, I've been at this business a long time. If I were you, I'd be a little careful about generalizing about people.
Well, I'm looking at Bob. I'm looking at the tape. You know what's interesting, Tommy?
Yeah, but you made a tape of 4 things.
Tommy, what's interesting is the Democrats that sat on their hands when the president's talking about jobs last night and doing things that everybody should agree on, I think they are responding and reacting to the loudest voice in their party. They're afraid of those people. They own those people in the chamber last night on the Democratic side, is my contention.
Moore scares the hell out of me, I can tell you that.
Sean, what they're doing is they're reminding those Democrats that voted for Donald Trump, that were kind of in between, didn't know which way to go. They're reminding them exactly why they cast their vote for Donald Trump. And then sitting on their hands while President Trump is talking about American jobs and infrastructure, the fact that they're sitting there and the fact that they're groaning when he talks about securing our borders, it just goes to show why he is the president of the United States and their party lost.
Can I just say one thing? At the end of, he gave a good speech, and of course expectations being what they were. But at the end, he said, let's all get together and unify. This is from the man who for 18 months ripped this country apart. Now, he picked out enemies. He picked out all kinds of enemies. He was cruel.
And you guys, and people on your side call him a Nazi and Hitler and a fascist.
I certainly did. You say our side. Will you stop doing that? You want to be...
That is your side.
You want to be your peeps with Alex Rose or whatever that idiot's name is?
Alex Rose? Who's Alex Rose? Can I just say something?
Fat slob who does the...
You're talking about Michael Morgan?
No, that guy that Trump's from, the radio guy.
All right, Tommy, we'll give you the last word.
I think it's a great day to be an American. I think that was one of the best speeches I've heard. I'm very proud that, yes, and the left is going to hate this. The left in its entirety is probably going to hate this. But guess what? That is our president, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, you got a lot more speeches in front of you, and you'll hear a lot more.
All right. Thank you both. Coming up, more from my recent interview with President George W. Bush. Up next, we'll meet one of the American heroes featured in the 43rd president's new book, One of Our Heroes. Find out what the president's painting meant to him. That and more tonight on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. So during my recent interview with President George W. Bush about his brand new book, Portraits of Courage, a Commander-in-Chief's tribute to America's warriors, well, I had the chance to meet some of the American heroes that were featured in the 43rd President's book, including Purple Heart recipient, retired U.S. Army Sergeant Daniel Cassara. Watch this. Was it surprising the President of the United States does a portrait of you? Did you know it was coming?
I did not. It wasn't until, I want to say, maybe a Facebook post.
Yeah.
I don't even have Facebook, but someone did and sent it to me and blew me away.
What did that mean to you?
It was an honor, and just knowing that someone that has been a part of the leading the free world and just took the time. And that's what I think people need to understand. He took the time. He could have gone and you know, withered away or cycled or golfed.
He could have done what I wanted. I've been wanting him to bash Obama for 8 years. He wouldn't open it. He wouldn't say a word.
He did do that. He did not do that because this is a man of honor and integrity. And to see the 90-something portraits of great men and women shows that integrity and honor that this man has in his heart for this country.
This really means a lot to you, and I know it does for all the other guys that I talk to.
Guess what I call him?
What?
The preacher.
Is that what you call him?
So at our events, we asked the vets to speak. He gave one of the most stirring speeches. I've heard a lot of speeches. This guy can speak. And
thank you, sir.
Remember that? That was awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Would you consider being a preacher?
No.
No. Okay.
I love God, but I don't believe that's my calling. So
let's talk, Danny, about what happened to you.
Sure. So 23 September 2005, I was in South Baghdad, Iraq, and me and 5 others were in an M113 armored personnel carrier, so it's a smaller tank, basically to get us from point A to point B, and we rode over an anti-tank mine, IED, EFP, whatever it was, but it had enough power to where it flipped the tank over, killed 2 of my guys. From that, I sustained bilateral fractures to my right tibia and fibula, shattered left tibia, both of my heel and ankle bones were shattered, and a dislocated right hip.
And how did you heal? How are you now?
Healed slowly, still healing to this day.
Are those the 2 guys that died with you?
These are. I make sure anytime I have a bad day, I just look down and think about their families, and it pushes me through.
I told the president, I went to Iraq. I also went into one of the hospitals there when I was there, or if I've gone to Bethesda, Walter Reed, it's embarrassing. You kind of walk out saying, these things are pretty superfluous that I think are wrong with my life. When you see the suffering that you
Tell him what you told about your legs. You came in the world with...
Oh, right, yeah. So the doctors asked me if I wanted to keep my legs. The chance of me being able to walk again was pretty low, according to them. It was early on, so they hadn't seen many cases like mine. So the question was, do you want to keep them? And I told them, I said, hey, I came in with 2. I'd like to leave with 2.
So it made it harder, your recovery?
It did. It did. I remember the first time that I got out of the wheelchair to try to walk again, and I was on parallel bars, and I went half the way, with my arms, because I was strong up top. It was just, I had no mobility down below, and I'm walking, with my arms, and the physical therapist yanked on the belt that was around me and pulled me back. He said, no, that's not how this works, and just trying to put one foot in front of the other was very difficult. Because
in other words, he didn't want you relying on your upper body strength.
That's correct. Right, because when you walk, you rely on your lower body.
And where are you now in terms of all your progress?
Well, golfing and cycling.
He's one of the few vets that's played golf in our tournament and rode the W100. I'll answer the question.
Yeah.
He's doing damn good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's a very accurate statement.
I want to know what was the speech that so inspired the president? Do you remember what you were talking about?
No, I mean, it was just about, just being there and just kind of how I felt and trying to be a voice for the men and women that were sitting there. I wanted the donors and those that were in attendance to just understand that we're not, to be looked down or saying, oh, poor warrior, poor veteran, more or less like, hey, this man or woman is at this place. What can we do to help them?
I do think a lot of people don't understand the trip to Germany, the trip to Bethesda, Walter Reed, and these guys are there for a year or longer.
Yeah, but most people, a lot of people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people would look at Danny and say, I feel sorry for you.
You would hate that.
I really would.
I respect your courage. I think the single most special quality, character trait, is courage. And you embody it. All these other guys embody it. And, Mr. President, I think that's what you capture in these guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
So.
I think the thing that we ought to focus on is helping people like Danny transition, because the future of our country is very bright when you think about the Dannys of the world taking leadership roles. And that's what we're all about. That's why this book was written. How can we help these men transition? Well, this guy's awesome.
Honor to meet you.
Thank you, sir.
I think you're really supposed to be a preacher, though.
Nah, I appreciate that.
If the president says you got to do something, you got to say yes.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
No, he doesn't.
And coming up, we need your help. A very, very important question of the day, and some of the voicemails, maybe not so nice, that you left me on the Hannity hotline. That's straight ahead.